In the mystical lands of Eldoria, where the sun kisses the highlands and the winds carry whispers of ancient tales, my life as Asli had always been one of glaring spotlights and fervent applause. Adored for my roles in plays that echoed through the grand theaters of the city, I was known for my beauty and emotive prowess. Yet, beneath the layers of makeup and the glittering gowns, there was a yearning for something profoundly genuine, something that the shimmering world of theater could never fulfill. One crisp autumn day, seeking solace from the relentless pace of my life, I wandered into the quieter parts of Eldoria, where the trees hummed with the wisdom of ages and the air smelled of old paper and adventure. It was here, in this forgotten part of the village, that I stumbled upon a quaint little bookstore that seemed as if it had sprung from the very pages of the folklore tales it harbored. The bookstore was a cozy haven of stacked books and drifting dust motes that danced in the slanting sunbeams. Behind the counter stood Czar, a man as unlikely as any protagonist of the epic tales that lined the shelves. Rotund and with a jovial twinkle in his eyes, Czar was the keeper of stories, a man whose laughter filled the room like a warm embrace. His appearance was unremarkable in the conventional sense. His clothes were simple, often dusted with flour from his morning baking. Yet his soul, his soul was a vibrant tapestry of tales and dreams. I introduced myself merely as Lee, a traveler in search of stories, hiding my true identity beneath a plain cloak. As Czar spoke of legends and heroes, his voice, imbued with passion and a reverence for the folklore he recounted, I found myself drawn to him. It wasn't just his knowledge, but the earnestness in his eyes, the unguarded joy he found in sharing his world. Each tale he told, from the lovesick prince to the weeping willows, seemed to breathe life into my weary soul. Days turned into weeks, and our meetings grew from fleeting visits to long afternoons spent in the labyrinth of bookshelves. The more time I spent with Czar, the more the facade of Asli, the celebrated actress, began to fade into the background, replaced by a burgeoning friendship that was as unexpected as it was welcome. In Czar's simple companionship, I found the echoes of a life I had longed for, one rooted in reality and the raw beauty of unscripted moments. As Eldoria's leaves turned golden and fell, my heart too began to change, weaving a new story that was far removed from the scripted plays of my past. It was a story time in its making, a bedtime story that started in the quiet corners of an old bookstore, with a man who loved tales and a woman who was just beginning to understand her own. As the season of frost began to veil Eldoria, the warmth between Czar and I blossomed, unfurling like the petals of the midnight bloom under the moon's watchful gaze. In the sanctuary of the bookstore, amidst the whispering pages and the scent of aged parchment, Czar began to share with me the most cherished tales from his collection. Each story was a piece of his heart, a fragment of the soul he so generously laid bare before me. These were not mere stories. They were windows to the realms of magic and morality, love and loss, all narrated with the fervor of a true believer in the power of folklore. Yet as our friendship deepened into something more tender, not all eyes that watched us were kind. Hidden within the shadows of our growing love, envy and greed began to stir. Matan, Czar's assistant, a lanky man with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, watched our closeness knit with a growing bitterness gnawing at his heart. He had always viewed himself as Czar's right hand, his successor in the world of words. But as I became a constant presence, his jealousy twisted into quiet resentment. Compounding this unrest was Ibrahim, Czar's father. A man of considerable influence in our village, he was driven not by the quaint charms of folklore, but by the cold clink of coin and the allure of status. Seeing his son's association with me, an actress of some renown, he saw a path to elevate his own standing, to turn Czar's humble bookstore into a beacon for the wealthy and the influential. His ambitions, however, required the compliance of a son who cared little for fame or wealth. Meanwhile, Dond, a cunning relative with eyes like a hawk, observed the undercurrents within the family with interest. Known for his sly demeanor and ambitions, Dond saw an opportunity amidst the familial discord. He began to whisper poisonous words into the ears of Czar's cousins, Metab and Zank, words laden with deceit about Czar's supposed intentions to usurp their places in the broader family ventures. As the festival of the harvest moon approached, a celebration of Thanksgiving and familial bonds, Don's manipulations reached their peak. During a crucial gathering where decisions of legacy and business were to be made, Metab and Zank turned on Czar. Publicly accusing him of plotting to leverage our relationship for personal gain, they sought to isolate him within the family. Czar, ever the gentle soul, was ill-prepared for such betrayal. His heart, so full of stories and trust, fractured under the weight of his cousin's harsh words. The betrayal plunged him into a deep despair, clouding his once bright demeanor with the shadows of doubt and sorrow. Amidst these turbulent emotions, I stood by Czar, my heart aching to shield him from the cruel tempest swirling around us. The tale of our love, so beautifully simple, had entwined with threads of envy and betrayal, turning our once peaceful story time into a bedtime story marked by shadows and whispers. As the chill of winter approached, the warmth between us faced its harshest test, and I found myself clinging to the hope that the strength of our bond could weather the storm brewing in the hearts of those we called family. The Grand Eldoria Festival, a spectacle of light and joy, was upon us, marking the height of winter with its promise of renewal and celebration. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and the murmurs of Eldoria's populace, who had gathered in the village square, adorned with twinkling lights and vibrant banners. It was here, amidst the festive chaos, that I was to perform, a showcase meant to celebrate the folklore I had grown to cherish through Czar's eyes. As the evening unfolded, the stage was set under the stars, a platform of dreams where I, Astley, stood ready to weave magic through the tales that had once been whispered to me in the quiet of the bookstore. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, their faces a sea of flickering shadows cast by the soft glow of lanterns. Yet, as I looked out, my heart tightened. Among the faces, I saw the strained expressions of Czar's family. His father, Ibrahim, wearing a mask of forced pride, Matin, his eyes darting with nervous tension, and Czar, my beloved, whose usually bright eyes were dimmed by the shadows of betrayal. The performance began, and I tried to lose myself in the act to embody the tales of love and valor. But the weight of the day's revelations hung heavily on me. My voice, usually clear and potent, trembled with the strain of suppressed emotions. The audience, sensing the tension, grew restless. My performance, a mirror of the turmoil within, faltered under the immense pressure of the moment. It was then, in the midst of a particularly poignant scene, that the conflict erupted anew. Dond, ever the instigator, chose this vulnerable moment to strike, loudly accusing Czar of manipulating me for his own gain, his voice cutting through the still air like a cold blade. The accusation turned all eyes on Czar, who stood near the stage, his figure stiff with shock. The festival, meant to be a celebration of community and storytelling, became the arena for a very public and painful confrontation. Czar, normally the quiet force of reason, found himself caught in a storm of accusations, his love for me and his loyalty to his family clashing violently. The crowd, drawn into the drama, whispered and murmured, their voices a rising tide of confusion and censure. Feeling the piercing eyes of the village on us, I stopped my performance, the story hanging unfinished in the air. Walking to the edge of the stage, I looked directly at Czar, our eyes meeting across the chaotic divide. The connection was electric, a silent conversation amidst the uproar. It was clear that something had to give, that the fabric of our lives, so intricately woven with love and tales, was tearing under the weight of familial deceit. As the festival ground simmered with tension, Czar took a decisive step forward, his voice finally rising above the din, calling for silence. The square gradually quieted, all awaiting his words. It was a turning point, not just for our relationship, but for Czar himself, who stood at the crossroads of his heart and his heritage, his choice poised to define the path of our shared future. As the echoes of the festival's tumult faded into the chill of night, the lingering unrest between us remained palpable. The village square, once a tapestry of celebration, now lay silent, a stark testament to the discord that had unfolded. It was then that Zafar, an elder revered for his wisdom and a pillar of the Eldoria community, stepped forth from the shadows of the festival's aftermath. Zafar, with his white, flowing beard and eyes gleaming with the light of many winters past, approached us with a steadiness that seemed to calm the air itself. He placed a gentle, weathered hand on Czar's shoulder, his presence a balm to the frayed nerves of everyone around. Under the soft glow of the remaining festival lights, he spoke, his voice a deep, soothing timbre that carried the weight of years and the warmth of heartfelt concern. "Czar, my boy," Zafar began, his eyes locking with Czar's, "the path of true love and family is often strewn with obstacles. But remember, every story worth telling is filled with trials that test the spirit and heart." Over the following days, Zafar became the mentor and guide Czar so desperately needed. They spent long hours in the elder's modest home by the fireside, where the walls were lined with ancient books and the air was thick with the scent of pine and old paper. Zafar shared tales not just of triumph and valor, but of forgiveness and reconciliation, stories that resonated with Czar's turmoil. Inspired by these folklore tales, and with Zafar's wise counsel, Czar began to see through the veil of pain and betrayal. He realized that the love and life he wanted to build with me could only flourish in the soil of forgiveness and understanding. With each passing story, Czar's resolve strengthened, molding his hurt into a quiet determination to mend the frayed bonds of his family. Fueled by this newfound resolve, Czar decided it was time to confront the tangled web of deceit that had ensnared his family. One crisp morning, under the pale blue sky of Eldoria's dawn, he called for a meeting with his entire family, including Ibrahim, Matin, Dond, Metab, and Zank. The meeting took place in the very bookstore that had been the cradle of our love, surrounded by the silent witnesses of countless tales. With a calm yet firm tone, Czar spoke of his feelings, his dreams, and the truths he had come to understand from the folklore he so cherished. He addressed each betrayal and misunderstanding with a clarity that only comes from a heart that seeks peace. Czar's words, though filled with emotion, were not accusatory, but rather an invitation to mend what had been broken. The impact of Czar's heartfelt confrontation was profound. The walls of deceit began to crumble as understanding dawned on the faces of his family. Ibrahim, touched by the genuine love Czar held for me and influenced by the elders' respected intervention, began to reconsider his ambitions. Matin, faced with the raw honesty of his friend, felt a stirring of remorse for his envy-driven actions. As the meeting concluded, there was a tentative sense of hope in the air, a feeling that perhaps the family could find a way back to each other, guided by the lessons of the very stories that Czar held dear. The process of reconciliation was slow, marked by moments of hesitation and steps of faith, but it was a start, a falling action towards a resolution that promised to heal. As the season softly transitioned into spring, the village of Eldoria blossomed, not just with the vivid hues of wildflowers, but also with the budding renewal of relationships that had once seemed irreparably strained. Czar's courageous vulnerability and my steadfast support began to weave a new narrative in his family, one where the threads of forgiveness and understanding gradually mended the tears caused by past grievances. The transformation was neither swift nor without its challenges. Each family member had to navigate through their own labyrinth of past actions and emotions. Ibrahim, who had once seen his son's affections as a stepping stone to greater prestige, now viewed Czar's happiness as a testament to a richer, more meaningful legacy. He began to engage more sincerely with us, his conversations no longer laced with the thinly veiled agenda of personal gain, but with genuine interest and affection. Matin, who had harbored envy and resentment, found his path to redemption through open dialogues with Czar. His journey from rivalry to redemption was marked by small acts of assistance and cooperation in the bookstore, gradually restoring the bond that had frayed under the weight of his concealed jealousies. Dond, Metab, and Zank, who had once conspired to disrupt Czar's life, were touched by his willingness to forgive. Their contrition was slow but steady, manifesting in efforts to support the bookstore and by publicly acknowledging their wrongdoing, which helped to heal the rifts within the wider family and community. The bookstore, once a quiet sanctuary for tales and dreams, became a vibrant center of community life, symbolizing the restored bonds. It was here that Czar and I often shared our story, a real-life tale of love's triumph over adversity, which quickly became a favorite among the villagers. Eldoria's residents, who had witnessed our journey from its tumultuous beginnings to its heartfelt resolution, often gathered to listen, drawing lessons and inspiration from our experiences. Our love, rooted in the shared passion for stories and solidified through the trials we faced together, became a celebrated legend in Eldoria. The very tales Czar had once narrated in the seclusion of his bookstore now included our own, told with a blend of joy and a deep appreciation for the trials that had tested and ultimately strengthened our bond. As the village celebrated the annual Festival of Renewal, Czar and I stood together, surrounded by both our families and the wider community, our hands intertwined. The festival, once a backdrop for our most challenging moment, now marked the full circle of our journey. Love, forgiveness, and understanding had not only reconciled Czar with his family, but had also enriched the entire community, weaving a stronger, more connected fabric of relationships. In the heart of Eldoria, under the canopy of spring's vibrant colors and the gentle sun, our story, the bedtime story of how true love and courage can heal the deepest of wounds, was whispered as a lullaby of hope, a testament to the enduring power of heart and humanity. Under the vast, starlit sky of Eldoria, the night air was crisp, carrying the scent of blooming night flowers and the distant echo of the Eldorian River. The village square, illuminated by the gentle glow of lanterns strung from tree to tree, gathered a crowd whose faces were lit by both the soft light and the warmth of communal spirit. This was no ordinary evening. It was a night where history would be woven into the tapestry of Eldoria's folklore, marked by the voices of its very own people. At the heart of this gathering was Czar, standing beside a small wooden podium placed at the center of the square. His presence, once that of a humble bookstore owner, now held the esteem and affection of all who had come to see him, not just as a storyteller, but as a living testament to the stories he cherished. Beside him stood I, Asli, my hand in his, sharing the quiet strength that had guided us through storms to this moment of peace. As the crowd settled, a hush fell over the square, the kind of silence that is thick with anticipation. Czar cleared his throat, his voice soon filling the air, resonant and warm. He began to narrate our story, the very one that had unfolded in the heart of Eldoria. It was a tale that had started with chance meetings among dusty bookshelves, grown amidst the trials of betrayal and misunderstanding, and flourished through the acts of forgiveness and redemption. With every word Czar spoke, the tale took on a life of its own, echoing around the square and into the hearts of the listeners. He spoke of our initial encounters, the surprise and delight of our burgeoning friendship, and the deep, almost inexplicable pull towards each other that had defied social expectations and personal insecurities. He recounted the struggles, the pain inflicted by those we had trusted, and the heavy silence of betrayal that had once threatened to sever the bond we had so carefully built. But more than the challenges, Czar emphasized the victories, the small, quiet moments of forgiveness, the hard-won understanding, and the rejuvenating power of love that had not only restored but deepened our connections. As he narrated, I watched the faces in the crowd, seeing in their eyes the reflection of our shared human experiences, the universal journey through hardship to hope. As the story neared its end, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, the night whispering along with Czar's final words. He concluded with a message of hope, a reminder that every person's life story, no matter how fraught with difficulty, holds the potential for redemption and joy. The applause that followed was heartfelt and lingering, and as it faded, the villagers began to share their own stories, inspired by ours. Elders recounted tales of old, parents whispered bedtime stories to their wide-eyed children, and lovers shared secrets under the cloak of night, all weaving their narratives into the fabric of Eldoria's living folklore. Our story, born from love and nurtured through trials, became more than just a tale to be told. It became a part of the village's legacy, a bedtime story passed down through generations, a beacon of hope for anyone who found themselves lost in the shadows, searching for the light of home. In the starlit embrace of Eldoria, our love story transcended the pages of time, forever remembered as a melody of hearts, a symphony of life's most profound and beautiful truths.